Good morning. It is an honor to be here with y'all. This is a beautiful thing. The leadership and subordinate leadership at Grindstone has done an awesome job, and I'm very proud of y'all for making this happen. So, clap hand for them. Good job, guys. Disaster Daisy. All right, we're going to pray before we get started. Father Yahuwah, thank you for the opportunity to be in this room with these men. Father, I pray that you would pour your spirit out on us, that you would be indwelt in this room, that I would be able to teach this material in a way that makes sense, that's relatable, and that they would be able to understand it and receive it. Father, thank you for your sovereignty and your continued provision, protection, and blessing. And thank you for redeeming us by the blood of your Son. In Yeshua's name, amen. Amen. All right, so I have a lot of notes. That's fun. Do you know why in a professional PA system they put the speakers out here, and then the speaker is behind it? So that you don't get feedback, and you don't have the Charlie Brown wah, 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 wah as a speaker behind you. So next year, we will resolve to do better and bring my PA and put the speakers over here. That's okay. What's in there? Okay, doesn't help us right now. Thanks, Storms. Great idea, Storms. You're in charge of that. Work with Dud. So, I have a lot of ground to cover, and so I'm going to be moving fairly quickly. This recording will end up on the YouTube channel for reference. If you find the subject matter interesting, you will probably need it. Tracking? Tracking. Every one of you on your table has a stack of blank printer paper. Do nothing with it until I tell you to do something with it. Tracking? Tracking. Okay, so a couple of things. There's a guy named Ed Milet who runs a coaching group that I'm a part of who loves to say, I am addicted to the expansion of my being. And I never understood fully what he was talking about until this weekend. I have felt since Friday before I got here that my soul and spirit have been expanding faster than my body. And if it doesn't slow down sometime soon, I'm just going to float away. And that's a really odd feeling, but it's good. And I can't quite quantify it. So with that as a foundation of what the Father's been doing in me since Friday, I had it in my brain that I was going to come down here and talk to you guys about spirit versus flesh, because that's been a concept that I have been bumping up against for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I've taught on it. I've talked about it on Patreon. I've taught on it at Refuge. I've taught on it at church. Spirit versus flesh. And it was kind of like, this is a slam dunk. This is easy. I've got lots of reps and sets on this. And on the drive down, the Father just laughed at me because he's good at that. I knew I was in the right place because I couldn't find diesel fuel for my truck. I stopped 3 different places looking for diesel fuel. Commodity. It's on planet Earth. Nope, not for me. And so I end up at a truck stop. And of course, the card reader on the pump doesn't work. So I'm inside talking to the guy. I'm like, just give me $80 on pump 10. And as I'm doing my transaction, this guy is at the ATM. Robert was his name. I hope Robert sees this. And he turns around and goes, "You're Bear from the internet." And I'm like, oh shit. In here. But me and Robert had a wonderful conversation for 3 minutes inside of this truck stop. And it was a signpost from the Father that I was in the right place at the right time. And the reason there was no diesel anywhere else was because I needed the confirmation from the Creator that I was in the right place at the right time. And that's been going on for me all weekend. So I get back in the truck and I'm like, spirit versus flesh, got this, slam dunk, swoosh, no problem. And I'm driving down the road, set the cruise control, and I get two words, Judah and Tamar. Judah and Tamar? I do not want to teach on Judah and Tamar. Judah and Tamar is Genesis 38. And you can sum it up in a handful of words. Don't bang whores. Okay? Ta-da! That's the parashat. Okay? So I'm like, Judah and Tamar. What could I possibly teach on Judah and Tamar? So, but Dad said, so I'm going to teach on Judah and Tamar. So you can go ahead and flip to Genesis 38, the story of Judah and Tamar. And so I start plowing through Genesis 38, and to be completely honest, I knew it was in Genesis somewhere, but I just started flipping because I've read it a bunch of times, but I hadn't read it in a while. Because parashat, don't bang horse, track in, got it, next. So I start reading the story of Judah and Tamar in Genesis 38. And like I said, we have a lot of ground to cover. And I'm reading this, seeing things through spiritual eyes that I've never seen before. And my mind is being blown. Friday, I was talking to Pastor Joe, and I was excited. Like, look at my notes. This is incredible. Now, as the weekend has progressed, I think damn near every one of you in this room has come up to me at some point and said words to the effect of, Bear, thank you for being Bear. And what have I told you? Praise Yah, I'm just a dude. And so the purpose of this talk, with the understanding that the reason you came here is in large part to leave better fathers, husbands, brothers, leaders. How do I equip you to be a little bit more like me? The things you see in me that you want to say thank you for, which is just the Father working through me. It's not me. I will foot stomp that. It's not me. It's the Father working through me. What are my processes? What do I do that allows me at times to be an adequate vessel for the Spirit to flow through me so that you can take those processes home to you, replicate them, tweak them, adjust them for you so that you can be the leader of your home, the priest of your home, a good brother, a good husband, a good father. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's what we're actually doing this morning, and we're using Genesis 38, Judah and Tamar, as a teaching point in order to be able to get there. Tracking? Tracking. The title of this talk is How to Fish. I'm not giving you fish. I'm teaching you how to fish. And I'm terrible at fishing, by the way. I'm really bad. If I need to eat fish, I have Jody and my wife for that. I will make sure there's fuel in the boat. I'm good at logistics. They're good at fishing. So, ground rules, groundwork here. You've probably heard me say this before, but it bears repeating. There are a minimum of 4 ways we can interpret Scripture. Is this new material to anybody? Raise your hand if you've never heard this before. Good. All right. I was like, we could skip this part, but we won't. This is important. Medieval Christianity, about 1300 AD, Anno Domini. This concept was developed called the fourfold interpretation. The first of the 4, take notes by the way, I'm a visceral, physical, tactile guy. When I write stuff down, it sticks, okay? It's part of why we're supposed to write the Torah, so that it sticks. And so that you can't say, I didn't know that. You wrote it in your own hand. How did you miss that one, okay? Although, the scales falling from your eyes is a lifelong process. They continue to fall, and your eyes continue to get bigger and better. So, 1300 AD, Medieval Christianity comes up with the fourfold interpretation. The first is literal. What does it say? Okay. The next is symbolic or allegorical. Messiah taught in parables, right? So that is symbolic, allegorical. The next after that is moral. What are the moral implications of what the word is trying to teach us? And this, don't bang whores, okay? And then the last is a big Greek word called anagogical. And anagogical, it's A-N-A-G-O-G-I-C-A-L. Anagogical.
Thank you, Bert.
You're welcome. An anagogical is concerned with the ascent of the soul. That's how the church described it. Moving from flesh to spirit. That's anagogical. So we have that on the Christian side. Well, what do our friends from the tribe of Judah say over here? 570 AD, there was a rabbi by the name of Moses de Leon. And Moses de Leon came up with what he calls the Pardes, which is the derivative word of the word paradise. Pardes is an anagram, just like NASA, not an actual space agency. Pardes is parashat, and parashat means literal. Then you have remez, the R, P-R, remez, R-E-M-E-Z, means symbolic or allegorical. Then you have the drosh. When we study the word, we do a midrash or a midrash. Drosh means comparative, comparing this word to that word. The law of first mention, where's the first time I see this in the Bible? And then downstream from there, that's drosh. I think it means this, and KD thinks it means that. That's drosh. The Israelites, observed this way in their time. We observe it now this way due to the constraints that we have around our life. That's drosh. Does that make sense? And then you're left with what's called the sod. And we're going to touch on the sod today, be it the Father's will. The sod is the mystical, the inexplicable, the burning bush, the resurrection, the parting of the Red Sea. That's sod. And Yeshua went out from them. How? Did time stop and he just moseyed out of the crowd? Or did time keep going and he just, I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. But that's sod. And I love the sod. And so that illustrates with the equipment that the Father gave us, our eyes, our ears, our brain, our hands, we have certain sensors that are built into us, right? Like KD flies aircraft. Depending on the aircraft, it has a different sensor array, right? The sensors that we have, we can perceive at least 4 different ways to interpret Scripture. I would submit there's probably infinite ways, but we have limited sensor capacity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Who here owns night vision? Okay. It's pitch black outside. You walk outside, you can't see anything with the sensors that you have. The whole world opens up to you just by changing the sensor that you have. Okay? So just because I can't see it with my eye doesn't mean it's not real. That is sod. And I love it. It's very deep. Tracking? Okay. So that's the first cornerstone there, 4-fold interpretation and Pardes. So now we're going to read Genesis 38. And we're going to read through it, and then I'm going to come back because the parashat here is don't bang horse. Tracking? Tracking. Okay. Are we allowed to bang horse? No. Okay, cool. All right. And at that time it came to be that Judah left his brothers and turned aside to a man, an Adulamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there was a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. And he took her and went into her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bore a son, and he called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Kezib when she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and Yahweh took his life. And Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother. And Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. And it came to be, when he went into his brother's wife, that he spilled on the ground, coitus interruptus, lest he should give an offspring to his brother. But what he did displeased Yahweh, so he took his life too. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah is grown. For he said, lest he also die, as his brothers did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And after a long time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted and went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira, the Adullamite. And it was reported to Tamar, saying, see, your father is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. And she took off her widow's garment and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. And Judah saw her and reckoned her for a whore, for she had covered her face. And he turned aside to her by the way and said, please let me come into you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what do you give me to come into me? And he said, let me send a young goat from the flock. And she said, do you give a pledge until you send it? So he said, what pledge should I give you? And she said, your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. And he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away and removed her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the young goat by the hand of the friend of the Adullamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand. But he did not find her. And he asked the men of that place, saying, where is the cult prostitute who was beside the way to Enaim? And they said, there is no cult prostitute in this place. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, snap. Foreshadowing. And Judah said, let her take them for herself, lest we become despised. For I sent this young goat to you. I sent this young goat, and you have not found her. And it came to be about 3 new moons after that Judah was informed, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has whored, and see, she is conceived by whoring. And Judah said, bring her out, and let her be burned. When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. And she said, please examine who these are, the seal and the cord and the staff. And Judah examined and said, she has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah my son. And he never knew her again. It came to be at the time for giving birth that, see, twins were in her womb. It came to be when she was giving birth that one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, this one came out first. It came to be, as he drew back his hand, that, see, his brother came out. And she said, how did you break through? This breach be upon you. So his name was called Perets. And afterward, the brother came out, who had a scarlet thread on his hand. So his name was called Zerah. And that's the end of the chapter. So before we dive into this, one of the questions I get all the time is, Bear, how are you so studied in the Word? You just know all these things. The Father didn't download it to me. I don't wake up every morning and there's a bright shining light in my bunk bed. And it's boom, download. I spend time with this, okay? I spend time in this Word. I pray over this Word before I open it. Father, show me what I need to see. All of that is something that you can replicate, that you should replicate. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, teachable moments. When I am studying, this is what studying looks like for me. You can do this, you can do a variation of this, you can do something that works for you. But when I say I am studying the Word, this is how I do it. The first thing I do is read it through, like we just did. Basic area familiarity. Where am I? Who are the players? What's happening? Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Then I read it again and I highlight. I'm a write in the book kind of guy. I drove my teachers crazy when I was in public school because that's property of the school. Well, I would argue it's my property because my parents paid taxes for it, but whatever, okay? I write in books. So if you write in a book, underline, highlight. If you don't, get out a notepad and start taking notes next to what you're reading. Tracking? Okay. Then I read it again, and I take even more notes. So this is 3 times for a chapter. Then, step 4, I flesh out my notes. I go back to my notes, and you should let your curiosity lead you, because that's where the good stuff is. Here's one. What do these names mean? Okay. Me and PJ were talking about this the other day. PJ was saying, in Native American cultures, he would be running fox, right? And we would all know, hey, where's running fox? He's like, he's right there. Oh, he went for a walk. He's drinking coffee in his cabin. But when you transliterate that from a different language to English, you get this name that doesn't mean running fox. So there's a description in the name. Hebrew is the same way, okay? So when I say flesh out my notes, that's what I'm looking at. Then I go to the professionals. What do I mean by that? I check commentaries. What do other people think about this? What does this piece mean? Do I agree with their assessment? If so, why? Do I disagree? If so, why? Then I check with Strong's, and then I get a map out, because that's the way my brain works. I have a map that I've showed you guys on camera 100 times. If I can find it, here it is. It's in the Minor Prophets. This is a basic map, circa 830 BC, pre-Assyrian exile. Do you know how handy this is? When I'm talking to people about the kingdom of Judah, the kingdom of Israel, the Edomites, Ammon, Moab, the Philistines, where is Soar? Oh, it's right over here. Then you start looking at it, and things start to make sense. Why did they go that way instead of this way? Why were Moab and Ammon constantly coming against the house of Israel? Because they shared a significant border, and it was a resource game. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. I'm a highly visual person. I want the map recon. I want to be able to look at it and go, I get it now. This map is the reason I believe the Magi, you familiar with the story of the birth of Christ? The Magi, the 3 wise men, they came from the east. They observed the signs in the night sky. I think they were Edomites. Because Petra in Edom was it's still there. It's this palace that's carved into a mountain where they would gather and observe the night sky every night. But they had to understand the implication of the sign in the sky. So they had to be in the family or close to the family. Who's that? Esau, Edom. They had a long tradition of observing the night sky and deriving signs from it. Petra is east of Jerusalem. So I don't think they were Chinese or Arabic or Russian. I think they were Edomites. And that just came from looking at a map. Edom's going to get destroyed. The seed of Esau will get destroyed. And they do. But he had to maintain a remnant of them to be at Petra for a time to observe the sign so that they knew that Messiah was coming, so that they could warn Joseph and Miriam to get out because Herod is going to kill them. And then we'll smoke the Edomites. Yah's time, not ours. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I look at maps. It helps a lot to put things in context. Then, after I look at the map, then I look at the historical record. What evidence exists in the historical record? Help me understand these people. What were they like? Because they were people. Judah was a person. And I came into Genesis 38 going, gosh, what a douche. What a douche, man. He was a guy. His wife died. He was in mourning. He went to go see his friend. He was looking for a little comfort. Okay? He was also doing wrong by Tamar. Anybody in here ever wronged somebody? I've wronged people. I'll probably do it again, not intentionally, but shit happens. right? So if you can start to empathize with these people as they were real people, and these are true stories, and there's value in understanding these stories for us, now we're getting into the drosh, the comparative. Tracking? Right. Okay. And then I read it all again in context. Again, try and wrap it up to make it make sense so that hopefully I can explain it like I'm 5. To myself first, then my wife and kids, then my assembly, then my tribe, then y'all. Cool? That's my process for studying. You can do the same thing. And then people will come up to you and go, "You're so learned in the Word. How did you learn that?" I spent time with it. Now, we're going to look at what I found in Genesis 38. Because it's amazing. But I would submit to you that if you spent time with every chapter in this book, from Genesis 1 to Revelation 22, they'd all be amazing. Because there's no accidents in here. Do we agree on that? Yeah. Okay. So, you can read along in Genesis 38 as we go. I want you to think about now not people, now not Judah and Tamar and and Onan, but prophecy and nations and reigns, okay? Who's the woman when we use the phrase the woman in the Bible? The church. Thank you. Remember that. So, Judah leaves his brothers. Did that ever happen? Was Judah ever separated from his brothers? Yes. On multiple occasions. One could argue that Judah is separate from his brothers now. He turns aside to Hira. Hira in Hebrew means hollowness or emptiness. He turns aside to emptiness. He takes a wife from the nations, a Canaanite. So he's now in covenant relationship with the nations. Are we allowed to do that? Why? Unequally yoked, but what do we have over here? It doesn't end well. It leads to idolatry. Has Judah been convicted of idolatry throughout their history? Are there prophetic undertones of this don't bang whores story? Yeah, we're 2 verses in. So Judah's wife is not named in the Bible, but again, check your references. Ahiat was her name, which means behold the mark of humility in Hebrew. Foreshadowing anyone? You're about to get your ass kicked, Judah. He has 3 sons. There's no vowels in Hebrew, so we have a resh and R, which means the head, right? It's firstborn. It's a good name for the firstborn. Well, he's evil and he dies. Is there a pattern of the firstborn dying in the word? Okay. Then comes Onan, and Onan has an interesting name. It's a double noon. So there's an implication that there was a choice here because his name could mean 2 things. One of which is faithful fertility. Is that what Onan did? Was he faithful in his fertility? No. You know what the other one is? The other meaning of his name? To experience much trouble. Onan was killed by Elohim. I would say he experienced much trouble. Then comes Shelah. Shelah is the nail in the coffin here as far as prophecy of names for Judah. Shelah means your staff of divine authority will be taken from you. Don't bang whores. Right? Because that's the parashat. Don't do people dirty. Don't bang whores. Did I lose my mic? I can speak from the diaphragm. Okay. So this takes place in a place called Kezib, or Kezib, which literally translates as deceitful or failing. Then here comes Tamar. Tamar's name in Hebrew. And how did I come to this? Delete the vowels, look at the letters. There's 22 Hebrew letters. There's 26 letters in the English alphabet. It's not an exact one-to-one, but you can find on any search engine you want the meanings of the Hebrew letters and their correlation to English letters. It's relatively easy. Tracking? Okay. Tamar's name means the headwaters of truth, the beginning of truth. So here comes Tamar. So, Shalah's name is your staff of divine authority will be taken from you. But Shalah is the son of promise. He's the one that was promised to the woman. Doesn't work out. Tamar goes into widowhood. She was a widow. Her husband died, right? Goes into widowhood in her father's house. The woman is in her father's house. Widow is the word almana. Familiar with Alma? Have you heard that word before? The Alma versus Betula argument that I love to have. Young woman versus virgin. Alma, young woman. Almana means widow. And if you look at the Hebrew letters of widow, it basically comes up with the word uncertainty. Her future is uncertain. Don't know what's going to happen to her, which is why we're not supposed to forsake the widow and the orphan, which is why Onan was supposed to raise up her brother's name to produce children for Tamar so that she would have children to take care of her. Does that make sense? Okay. So she's widowed, and that word almana, the direct translation is a desolate house. The woman is in a desolate house, but then she comes into under her father's covering. Who's the father? Early church history, there's a lot of parallels here. And then the split from proto-Christianity as a sect of Judaism, and then the split between Judaism and early Christianity. So she's uncertain. After a long time, Judah's wife dies. The covenant relationship he was in with Ahiat dies. Ahiat was the daughter of Shua. Shua's name means to take hold of connection to divine power. So he was connected to divine power, authority, the whole nine. And his wife, his covenant relationship dies. When he gets disconnected from this divine authority, he ends up over here banging whores that turns out to be his daughter-in-law. Is there a parable in that? Is this interesting, or are you guys bored to death? Okay, cool. I can't tell. I'm looking at KD. Are your eyes glossing over? You good? You're like, man, I sent you a 31-page outline and you said too long, and then you're up here doing this. You're welcome. We'll talk later. Yeah, we will. Guaranteed. All right. So Judah loses his connection to divine power, Shua, when his wife Ahiat dies. His covenant relationship ends, and he loses connection to divine power. Judah is then comforted, goes to Timnah to shear his sheep. Timnah means restraint, or your portion has been assigned to you. This is now certain. Think about, just mentally, shearing of sheep. Sheep are flocks, right? Is a pastor or a leader supposed to fleece his flock? No. Now, sheep are interesting creatures. I know, I have a bunch. I've given several of you several sheep over the years. Our sheep don't need to be sheared. Katahdins. I get this question all the time on the internet. What kind of sheep do you have? Katahdin. How do you spell it? www.google.com. You okay? Yeah. Most breeds of sheep, if you don't shear them after a while, the wool becomes so oppressive and heavy that they'll die. They lose their mobility. They can't move. They can't see. It's a problem, right? But just the idea of fleecing your flock, it's arguably bad stewardship in this context. Judah returns to Hira, which is hollowness and emptiness. That's where he goes back to be comforted. Patterns of behavior, anyone? Like a dog returning to his vomit? Hollowness and emptiness to his friend. He's familiar with, he's comfortable with Hira, hollowness and emptiness. I know there's good stuff over here, but I don't want anything to do with it. I'm hurting. I'm going to go over here and wallow like a pig in shit for a while. Tamar removes her widow's covering, removes her uncertainty. She covers herself with a veil, concealing herself, hiding the image of Elohim. We're all created in his image, right? Right? Okay. This is going to be as boring as interesting as we make it. I like interaction, okay? And wraps herself in the garments of a whore. Has the church wrapped itself in the garments of a whore? Yes, it has. Yeah, infected. Big C Christianity is infected with the garments of a whore. Doctrines and dogmas and our traditions versus what the word says. She goes to Enaim, which means two eyes or two springs. Springs are life-giving. Wells are life-giving. You see this all throughout the Torah, right? If we have water, we will live. We just did the Beis Shalach Torah portion, and we talked about the bitter waters of Mara, right? And Miriam, Moses' sister, she's double, Mem, Resh, Mem. She's the head of waters, right? So every time there's water issues in the Torah, they look at Miriam. When Miriam dies and Moses is in mourning, they're all like, what are we going to do for water? It's like, my sister died. And they're like, yeah, we got it. That sucks. What about the water? Okay? So there's water is life, right? All those who thirst for life, come to me and I will give you living waters, Messiah says. Two springs. That's foreshadowing. Why two? We'll get there in a minute. Judah sees Tamar, reckons her for a whore, and turns aside to her. What is repentance in the Hebrew? Teshuvah or to shuv. What does shuv mean? To turn. Judah was going this way, straight and narrow path, and turned aside to Tamar. Right, we can see this in the New Testament, right? Sin starts first as an idea, right? The seed of sin. And before you know it, you're in the midst of it. And it has come to fruition in the flesh. Judah turns aside to Tamar. Tamar, wrapped in the garb of a whore, says, what will you give me? That's an interesting question. How are you going to serve me? What are you going to do for me? Does the church exist to serve you, or do you exist to serve the church? What do you give me? Judah says a young goat. Anybody here read Leviticus lately? What do we use goats for? Sin offerings. Judah presents a sin offering to the church. Quick question. What house is Messiah from? Don't bang whores, that's all it means. Tamar requests a pledge until the goat, the sin offering, is received. So she gets his seal, his cord, and his staff. The seal, like a signet ring, that's his status. Okay, kings had that, generals have that, right? Correspondence, you seal the correspondence and you don't break the seal, right? The cord depends on which translation you're looking at. There's a lot of conjecture that the ring in the Aramaic style was worn on a necklace, not on his hands, and that was the cord that was supporting it. There's other commentary that this was the cord that went around his garment. So it was either supporting, the cord was either supporting his status or it was binding his garments. If it's binding his garments and you lose that cord, you're losing your covering. Tracking? Tracking. Okay. And then his staff. The staff is authority. So Judah says, Tamar says, hey, in lieu of the sin offering that is coming, I'll take your status, your covering, and your authority. No small thing, right? And here's Judah in the grips of this. Hollowness and emptiness, turned aside, going into a whore. It's like, I will basically trade you my life for a few moments of comfort. Anybody ever been there before? I am an addict. I did that for decades, right? Again, empathy. When I started reading this, I didn't want to like Judah. Not even a little bit. Like, screw this guy. He banged his daughter-in-law? What a scumbag. Tamar, check this out. Tamar was a Canaanite. So not only was Ahiat, Judah's wife, a Canaanite, Tamar was a Canaanite. We call that the nations. Okay? So it was prophesied that the seed of Judah would go into the nations all the way back here in Genesis 38, in the don't bang whores portion, because surely that's all it could mean. Okay? You seeing this? Okay. Tamar was a Canaanite, betrothed to Judah. The two become one flesh. Sounds familiar. She's in the lineage of Messiah. She's filled with the seed of Judah. And she conceives. Now, interestingly, you can compare this with John chapter 8, and we'll go there real quick. John 8:31. I don't have a bookmark, just kind of winging it. So in John 8:31, about page 1033 in the scriptures, some of y'all got the pocket version, some of y'all have the giant version. The page numbers are approximate. John 8:31, so Yeshua said to those Yehudim who believed in him, if you stay in my word, you are truly my taught ones, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And they answered him, we are the seed of Abraham. We have been servants to no one at any time. Inaccurate. How do you say we shall become free? Yeshua answered them, truly, truly, I say to you. So that's the first lie. We've been servants to no man at any time. Okay. How do you say you shall become free? Yeshua answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant of sin. True. And the servant does not stay in the house forever. A son stays forever. There's a whole teaching on that on the Torah for redemption, which is Leviticus 25. And if you haven't read it and view Leviticus 25 through the lens of the cross, additionally with Leviticus 5, which is the offering for unintentional sin, and compare that to the words that Messiah says on the stake, he knew exactly what he was doing. And it was Torah when he did it. Okay? Because there's no sin in him, right? What is sin? Okay? Where do we get that definition from? 1 John 3, verse 4. Sin is lawlessness, and all who do sin do lawlessness. What's the implication? I should probably know what the law is so that I don't sin. Because Messiah paid for all the lawlessness that I've already done, but shall we sin all the more so that grace may abound? Yah forbid you continue to break the law. There's this one rabbi I listen to. He's kind of a jerk, but I like the way he says this. He goes, you're criminals. I never thought about it that way. Lawbreakers, criminals. He's like, don't be a criminal. Okay, that's cool. That's good. It helps cement it for me, right? Some of us really enjoy and have enjoyed in the past are lawless behavior. Outlaws. Where's Jody? He's in here somewhere. Right? I was an outlaw. I did all kinds of bad stuff. Was it fun? Yeah. Was it profitable? No, not even a little bit. Okay. And the servant does not stay in the house forever. A son stays forever. If then the son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. I know that you are the seed of Abraham, but you seek to kill me because my word has no place in you. Is that lawful? Can you just kill someone because you don't like what they say? No. I've thought about it a few times. But it's not allowable. I speak what I have seen with my father, and you do what you have heard from your father. And they answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. And Yeshua said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. See that? Do the works of Abraham. Right? Deeds, not words. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has spoken to you the truth, which I heard from Elohim. Abraham did not do this. You do the works of your father. Then they said to him, we were not born of whoring. We have one Father, Elohim. And this was a constant rebuttal from the Yehudim of the day against Yeshua, that Mary, your mother, is a whore. You're born of a whore. Second lie, we were not born of whoring. Because we're reading Genesis 38 right now, and we're going to see Perets and Zerah, who come forth from Judah. Was that a covenant relationship that they were conceived in? No, it was not. Intimacy outside of a covenant relationship is called what? Whoring. We were not born of whoring. Bro, it's right here. We're reading it. Okay? We have one Father, Elohim. Yeshua said to them, if Elohim were your father, you would love me. For I came forth from Elohim and am here. For I have not come of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not know what I say? Because you are unable to hear my word. You are of your father the devil, and the desires of your father you wish to do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and has not stood in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks the lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Because I speak the truth, you do not believe me. Who of you proves me wrong concerning sin? And if I speak the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of Elohim hears the words of Elohim. Therefore you do not hear, because you are not of Elohim. And he goes on, casting demons in the whole nine. Could you imagine being Yeshua, Yah made flesh, in the line of David, dealing with these assholes? They're like, you're born of a whore. It's like, oh, aren't we all? Okay? So, flip back to Genesis 38. Continuing. Tamar was a Canaanite woman. She conceives. Tamar returns to widowhood. She goes back into her father's house. Not Judah's house, her father's house. You could probably go way deeper on that, the implications of that. Judah sends the sin offering by the hand of Hira, hollowness and emptiness. We can infer that his heart probably wasn't in it at this point. He sends the goat. The woman, back in her father's house, the woman's not found. She can't receive the sin offering, the goat, so she keeps the staff, the status, the covering, the authority. I've got a note here, Matthew 27, 22 through 26. So let's go look at that real quick while I remind myself why I wrote that there. Matthew 27, 22 to 26. Further rejection of Messiah. That's why I wrote it there. The sin offering was not received. Pilate said to them, "What then shall I do with Yeshua, who is called Messiah?" And they all said to him, "Let him be impaled." And the governor said, "Indeed, what evil has he done?" And they were crying out all the more, saying, "Let him be impaled." And when Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but rather an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of the blood of this righteous one. You shall see to it." And all the people answering said, "His blood be on us and our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but having Yeshua whipped, he delivered him over to be impaled. Now there's prophecy as to the why in this. One could argue from the book of Jeremiah, and it'd be a strong argument, that Judah never received a bill of divorce. I don't quite understand it yet, but I know that the Torah says that a son cannot marry his father's bride. I don't have that one all figured out just yet, but there's something there. That's a thread worth pulling. And so, for the time being, Judah and Elohim are betrothed. They're in covenant. They certainly don't act like it, the vast majority of them. That being said, the vast majority of Christians certainly don't act like they're in a covenant relationship with the Creator either. Part of our job is to help steward those people into a better covenant relationship. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because this knowledge and this conviction has been revealed to us, not to keep in here, but to give away. Let your light shine, right? Apologetics are a very useful thing. I'm pretty bad at it, but there's lots of videos out there, Zach at New to Torah, Shofar Mountain. There's lots of reasons, lots of arguments to not convict somebody. Conviction is not your job. You guys tracking on that? Right. Okay. Conviction is the Spirit's job. John chapter 16. The Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, shall convict you concerning sin, righteousness, and judgment. The Spirit does the convicting. Wolf, you can't do the Spirit's job. I can't do the Spirit's job. It's not my job. My job is to speak the word of Elohim. That's also your job. This is the whole parable of the seed. Some of it falls on rocky ground. Some of it falls on fertile soil. I'm not in charge of what the soil looks like, right? Anybody here ever plant a garden? Cool. You can work the dirt. You can put the seeds in. Raise your hand if you can make it rain. Immediately after this, we'll be sacrificing Kyle out in the parking lot. I'm not in charge of the rain or the sun. That's Yah's job, right? I can just scatter seed. Where it falls, you plow the field of your heart. That's your job, not my job. I'm just chucking seed, bro. I love chucking seed. Rucksack full of seed. But once it's out of my hands, it's out of my hands. Tracking? Right. Okay. So let's continue with Judah and Tamar here. Judah sends the sin offering by the hand of Hira, hollowness, emptiness, the woman back in her father's house. The woman's not found. She receives the goat, the sin offering, keeps the staff and the stuff. 3 new moons go by. I looked a lot into the numeric value of 3 new moons. There's something here that has not been revealed to me yet. I encourage you, tug that thread. I don't understand the significance yet, but I understand that the significance of this word is enormous. They wouldn't have said 3 new moons if 3 new moons wasn't relevant. So somebody should look through that. Tamar Horde, Judah hears a report, she's pregnant. Judah says, bring her out and let her be burned. Heath, what's your favorite book in the Bible? Revelation. Revelation 8, the bitter waters. Is it 8? Okay. In the book of Numbers, there's a proceeding for a woman who's accused of adultery. She's brought into the temple by her husband. She uncovers herself, and the priest, representing the Most High, takes some dust and ash from the floor, mixes it into water, makes the water bitter, and she drinks it. If she has been adulterous, the water consumes her. Her belly swells and her thigh wastes away. If she's not been adulterous, nothing happens. Now, we talked about the fourfold interpretation in the Pardes. There's a lot happening in this situation. If you don't really think your wife cheated, you're not going to bring her topless into the temple. Okay? So you got to really think something's going on here. Conversely, if she knows that she didn't, what does this action look like for her? She's done nothing. Let's party. Probably pretty defiant. My wife would be pissed. Okay? My wife would be pissed. This water's not going to bother her at all. But if she's carrying guilt, the placebo effect of some water with some dust and ashes in it, the guilt is what makes your belly swell and your thigh waste away. And now we know. So bitter waters in the Bible are always tied to, just like we saw in the Beishalach Torah portion, it's always tied to whoring, idolatry, disobedience. And it's used as a sifting tool in Revelation when wormwood falls and 1/3 of the population dies due to bitter waters. There's a 1/3, 2/3 thing that's happening over and over again in Revelation. It ties back to the goat, the sin offering for Azazel. 2 to Elohim, 1 to the enemy. And so there's a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 over and over and over again in Revelation as the entire population is being winnowed down into a remnant. And with each one, they're being forced to choose. I can't imagine going through that and not having your mind made up yet. Some people are dense. I was one for a long time. Why is this happening to me? Read the book. You're getting your ass kicked by the Creator because you're stupid. Oh, okay. I should probably not do that anymore. That's shuv. Turn away from. Okay? Sorry. Nuggets, sidebars, Revelation. The bitter waters. Bring her out and let her be burned. What happens in Revelation to everybody who's not on Team Yeshua? Heath? Gathered up and burned. Like the chaff of wheat, maybe? Okay. Bring her out and let her be burned. Now there's conjecture on burn her completely or burn her cheek to mark her as a whore. To mark her. That's also a Revelation thing. People all the time are like, is the mRNA vaccine, is that the mark of the beast? I don't think so. And Yah seals his people first. So if you're worried about getting the mark of the beast, have you been marked by Elohim? Because Revelation 7, Yah seals his people first. Because the enemy is a liar and a copycat. The enemy goes, that's a great idea. We should do that too. Right? His whole MO, modus operandi, from the beginning of time in the garden was, did God really say? Is that what God really said? I am so sensitive to that. Like anytime I see somebody go, but is that what it really says? It's like, well, let's open it up and find out before I end up blasphemous, burning in a pit of fire and sulfur, right? Because that's the tool of the enemy. Did God really say? We talked, Larry talked yesterday afternoon. Ephesians, putting on the whole armor of Elohim, right? This book is a first aid kit, and a sword, and a shield, and water, and bread, and life. And if you don't know what's in it, know what's in it, somebody will come along and whisper some stuff into your ear that's not the word of Elohim. And you will turn aside, just like Judah. You'll be over here doing stuff that doesn't make any sense, it's completely unrighteous. Because somebody whispered, is that what God really said? Which is why I tell all of you, study your own word. Do not take my word for it. Don't take PJ's word for it. The day I met PJ, I was like, I think this prepper stuff's cool. This is cool stuff. But I'm here because I want to learn about the Bible. And he goes, good. PJ gets this lopsided grin every now and then. I love it. He's smiling. And I said, I'm going to check everything you say against the Word of God. He goes, good. Good. As he should have. And as I should tell you, do not subcontract your faith to me, because I will fail you. I am a human. I make mistakes. I am imperfect. So you have to know what the Word says. Tracking on that? Right. And the Word clearly says things on different levels. And one level does not negate the other. So, Judah whores, sends the goat. Tamar says, by the man whom these belong, I am pregnant. That's foreshadowing. I am. I am that I am. What shall we call you? I am. Labels. She says, please examine the seal, the staff, and the cord. And he never knew her again. Judah and Tamar. I don't know why I can't just witness to these Jews. He never knew her again. Should you try? Yeah, you should. There's an awesome ministry called One for Israel. It's beautiful. They have wonderful testimonies on their YouTube page of Jews who read the New Testament against the advice of their rabbis, and they realize, oh, this guy was just a dude from Judah doing Torah, teaching Torah. That's my guy. It's awesome. But this separation is prophesied. It's ordained for a time, until such a time as the scales truly fall from Judah's eyes. And I would submit the faster those scales fall, the closer we are to the return of Messiah. Because every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess. So, Judah never knows her again. But there were twins in her womb. This is a common trope in the Bible. Twins are good. Twins represent lots of fertility. When your sheep or your cows, when a cow has twins, dude, windfall. It's amazing, right? It's like noteworthy in small towns. They put it in the newspaper. And Jerry's cow had twins. Everybody's like, yeah, good job, Jerry. You know, $1,000 a head, man. That's awesome. For calves, good job. Twins are a big deal. We see this repeated throughout the patriarchs. Twins, twins, twins. Jacob and Esau, right? Let me tell you what these twins' names mean. So, assuming I had the correct notes right here. Perets is first. Do you know what Perets' name means? Anybody? Overcoming. To he who overcomes. You hear this argument all the time, especially nowadays. It's becoming popular all of a sudden to be, there's anti-nation state of Israel, which really should be anti-Zionism if people are being intellectually honest. Biblical Israel is defined in Genesis chapter 32. And there's three main points to it. He who is struggling with Elohim, he who is overcome with Elohim, and he who is ruling with Elohim. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. That means Messiah is in the middle of Israel. Are you tracking on that? Right. You can't have Israel in today's day and age without Messiah. Biblical Israel. You need proof text for the people who are watching at home. Ephesians chapter 2. Go read it. For you were apart from Messiah and therefore apart from Israel, and the promise of the covenants, plural, covenants, because covenants stack, they don't replace one another. But now that you have Messiah, you are a part of Israel. And as we can see, we wouldn't get Judah without the nations in the first place. No Tamar, no tribe of Judah. So here comes Perets, whose name means to overcome. He has his outstretched arm. What letter is that in the Hebrew? Yod. How many times have I told you every time you see the word Yod in the Torah to underline it, because that's Yeshua. At the right hand of Elohim. Here comes Perets overcoming with his arm outstretched. And Perets symbolizes a transformative moment of radical change. Perets is the first coming of Messiah. And then you have Zerah. Zerah's name means shining, brightness, rising, or the dawn. It literally means to shine with brilliance. It's all light. I am the light of the world. He has a scarlet thread tied around him. Scarlet, red. Red is covenants. Thread, binding. A binding of covenants tied around him, which is an allusion to the white robe dipped in blood in Revelation 19. When Messiah returns, the second coming of Messiah. And that is hidden right there, just beyond a little bit of basic translation of don't bang whores. Is that amazing or what? It's mind-blowing to me. This is prophecy. The don't bang whores chapter is prophecy. And I would submit to you, it's all like that. We just haven't spent enough time with it. Every one of these chapters. I can't stand reading the book of Numbers. I can't. I'm just being honest with you guys. And then begat Menimene, and Menimene begat Balubadu, and Balubadu begat you know. Ugh. I bet you, had someone taken the time to translate what those names mean, there'd be a brilliant and wonderful story in that. PJ did a video called Tribes in Revelation, where he translated the meanings of the names and the hidden message that was in there. You should look it up. It's on the Shofar Mountain YouTube page. It was beautiful. I still have the notes from that in this Bible right now, because that's how awesome it was. But we don't take the time with it. We go, I read the chapter, check. Spent some time in the Word today. Got it, don't bang whores. And the parashat of don't bang whores is true. That is true, right? The allegorical, yeah, you can turn aside the remez. You can turn aside, you'd be on the path and turn aside, and now here you are. You're in sin. That's also true, right? Do you agree? Yes? Are we awake? Okay, cool. Because I have a wife that loves me. I just go home. I'm not that far from home. The drosh, how do we compare this to our lives? Judah treated Tamar badly. As a result, his authority, his status was taken from him. And all the foreshadowing was there. His yes was not yes. He said, I will give you Shalach as a son, as a husband. And he didn't. And because he didn't, we have no idea how Yah's moving pieces on the chessboard. Now, Tamar also dressed herself as a whore. Not recommended, okay? It's really hard to engage in fornication if you're not like setting yourself up to engage in fornication, right? Like, know your triggers. Oh, that thing could set me up to engage in fornication. I shouldn't do that. Fences and gates, okay? So the drosh is also true. Judah did stuff he shouldn't have done. Tamar did stuff she shouldn't have done. There's things we shouldn't do. Let's guard against doing those things. That's true, right? Yes. But the sod is also true. And that's gorgeous to me. How many times has this been translated? Infinity times. How many times has it been read? You know, I told you as part of my process, I check commentaries. I couldn't find a single commentary on this. Not one. Doesn't mean they're not out there, but they're not on the internet with a quick Google search. So the enormity of presenting this for me was significant. Like, surely, Father, you wouldn't just tell me. But he didn't. He told all of us. The only difference is I just spent a little bit more time with it. I didn't take it for granted at face value. And so I have a coach and a friend who tells me I move very quickly in the direction of my curiosity. And that's true. And I'm a voracious reader. I don't know, it's just the way the Father made me. I have good retention, it sticks. So I knew there was something more there. And I knew there was something more there because the Father would not have told me Judah and Tamar if I wasn't supposed to read it. And I also knew in my spirit, I can't fill 2.5 hours with don't bang horse. Unless we tell a lot of really raunchy stories, which I don't want to do, okay? So there's got to be something more here. And what I'm doing right now is proving to you in real time, there's absolutely more here. You reap what you sow, right? If you walk through this word casually, it will produce casual results. If you take it serious, it will produce serious results. We tracking on that? Tracking. Okay. What time is it? I still have time. You guys want to go a little bit deeper? Yes. Okay. That's the story of Judah and Tamar. Praise Yah. Thank you for getting me through that, Father. It's like I have no idea how to do this. That's how I study. We talked about how I study. We'll talk about a few other things that you all have come to me and attempted to put me up on a pedestal, which you shouldn't. And I know it's appreciation, and I honor the appreciation, but I will continue to say, I am not special. There's nobody in this room, there's nobody within the sound of my voice right now that can't do what I do. Do you understand that? Yeah. Okay. I need you to really know that in your heart. Anything you see in me that seems awesome to you is not me. It's Elohim. That I am honored that he would work through me for you to see something good. Okay? Because I am de facto not good. I know this. I have a lifetime of evidence to prove I'm not good. And in spite of how not good I am, he's incredible. And maybe the only differentiation between me and you is I have committed myself, sometimes better, sometimes not as well as I should have, to be a willing participant in his will. Okay? When he says go, I say yes, sir. Especially when I don't want to, and it's really uncomfortable. There's been many times with Grindstone, we've wanted to go. We're ready. And he's like, that's cute. I didn't say go yet. Much like Larry, I just said stand. Okay? So being able to discern what the Father is saying to you and when to go. In no particular order, people. People are the best thing and the worst thing about life. At least for me. I love people that I know. And I am terrible at loving people that I don't know. Just horrible at it. Trying to get better. And so with that understanding, I would challenge you to see people as Messiah sees them. That his sacrifice is for them too. That Yah made them for this specific time, at this moment, with an expectation for them to do his will here in this lifetime too. I'm on a mission for Elohim. What an honor. I know what it is because I asked him and he told me. So are all of you. Just some of you just don't know what it is because you haven't taken the time. You've prioritized the time poorly. You haven't taken the time to truly seek the Father's face and say, why did you make me? Why am I here? Okay? We have our left and right limits here. We have our constraints, the Word and the Word made flesh. This is how we should conduct ourselves as people. Tracking. But in the doing of what? Why are you here? What is the point? And without an answer to that question, you will meander around hopelessly with zero fulfillment, feeling disconnected from the Creator. Because there's something you should be doing and you're not doing it because you don't know what it is. That's de facto disobedience. How long will the Father tolerate that and extend grace and mercy to you because you didn't take the time to ask the Creator of the universe what your job description is? Brothers, that's retarded. You can take that even further. The fact that you woke up this morning is a gift. The fact that we're all here is a gift. There's food in our bellies. There's coffee, asterisk. It takes a long time to make it. There's a lot of us. It's been a struggle all weekend. We love you, Storms. Inexplicably, we love you. But all this is a gift. I don't deserve this. You don't deserve it. None of us deserves it. We put 13 people in the lake. There's dead bodies floating all over that lake. Praise Yah.
Praise Yah.
That's a gift. We take it for granted. You spent your time and your money to come here and decide whether or not it was a worthy investment for you to come to ATS 2020. Your money? Your time? I love in Jeremiah, the Father says, give me my sheep. Give me my goats. They don't want to make offerings because they're like, oh, what happens if the flock gets too small? Whose flock is it? Whose grass do they eat? Whose water do they drink? Whose earth is it on? Right? So that goes back to, there's a hierarchy here, and we should be willing participants in it. Because when we're not, when you take everything for granted, it leads to a lack of fulfillment and resentment. I should have. I should be dead. That's what I should be. And I should, depending on where he chose to take me in my timeline, be eternally separated from him. And yet he saw fit to put a covering over me for a decade where I was in satanic apostasy. What? Do I have a reason to bitch now about anything? No. No, I do not. And I have an incredible life filled with wonderful people and purpose because I took the time to talk to Dad and ask him why. Why do you need me? And he's going to answer you because he's good and righteous. And you're not going to like the answer. It's very difficult to find stories of the men of Elohim in the prophets and the writings where the Father tells them to do something and they're like, sure, got it, no big deal. Jonah, primary example. Go to Nineveh, preach the word. Hell no. That is the capital of Assyria. We hate the Assyrians. They're a bunch of heathens. My people back home won't even listen to me, and you want me to go over there and tell them about you? Jonah's a reluctant participant the entire time. By the way, there's a foreshadowing of the resurrection in Jonah. Go read it carefully. Jonah, that's why Messiah says, I give you no sign but the sign of the prophet Jonah. Jonah died. When he falls into the water, when they throw him off the boat, Jonah dies. He says he can see the grips of Sheol, and he is ended. And then the great fish swallows him up, spits him out on the seashore, and he's not dead anymore. Yeah, the implications of that are huge. But we go, check, got it. I read Jonah. There's a whale. Dude didn't want to go. He ends up going, spits him out. Everybody's happy. Yay, they win. Right? They're like inherited these like Sunday school teachings. Like, check, got it. Yeah, animals 2 by 2 onto the ark. No big deal. Unclean animals 2 by 2 onto the ark. What? There was a separation? Yes, there was. 7 of the clean, 2 of the unclean. 7 pairs. Why 7 pairs? Agricultural food production. On the ship, and then after the ship. Then Noah comes off the boat and he makes an offering. Thank you, God. On what day did he make an offering? Shavuot. How come nobody ever taught us that before? Because that's your job, Rutledge. And everybody else's job too. Okay? So see people as Messiah sees them. And understand you're on a mission and you need to know what it is. The Father didn't accidentally make you. There is no serendipity. It's not coincidence. The amount of logistical lift that had to require to get 80 people here this weekend, it's a big deal. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. You should honor that. So, me dealing with people, I try to see them as Messiah sees them. I'm not good at it. But because I know I'm not good at it, that gives me an opportunity to get better at it. Tracking?
Tracking.
Okay. Speak truth to the best of your ability. Truth to the best of your ability. I'm not always great at this either, because a lot of times I end up pulling my punches because I don't want to hurt people. That doesn't serve them. And so the understanding that I've come to is truth in the flesh wounds people, but truth in the spirit heals people. So, if I have to have a difficult conversation with someone, knowing that Messiah died for Heath too, I don't want to just run in there and be like, man, F you, blah, blah, blah. We're not helping anything. We're getting further apart, not closer together. Truth in the flesh wounds. Truth in the spirit heals people. A better way to handle that would be to come to Heath in humility and be like, dude, you're my brother and I love you, and I fucked this up, and I'm so sorry. And I did that because my ego has flared up. And that happened because I'm concerned about this thing. And I didn't know how to have an honest conversation with you about this thing. And I'm sorry. That repairs the breach, doesn't tear it down, right? Right?
Right.
Okay. I know. That's not easy, especially as men. It requires humility.
Humility? No.
And that's hard. It is hard to admit I made a mistake. And I've sinned against my brother. I've wounded you, and I'm sorry. But like all things that are hard, the more you do it, the easier it gets. I'm not great at this either, but I'm trying to be better at it. Tracking?
Tracking.
Okay. Then we got time. Continue with people. Boundaries are biblical. Okay? Fences, gates, walls around the temple, the veil to the Holy of Holies, the veil that Moses had over his face. They're like, dude, you are literally glowing. We can't look at you. Boundaries are biblical. You can love someone, and you should, and it doesn't mean they have to be all right up inside of you, right up next to you. Okay? I'm not saying this is correct, but one of the best ways that I love people that I'm not getting along with right now is standoff. Right now, I need you to be over there so I can be over here so that we don't wound each other any further. Okay? And then we can build bridges back towards one another. First rule of medicine, first do no harm. Okay? Boundaries are biblical. You see a lot in we were just talking about Acts chapter 2 the other day. And they held all things in common. That sounds great. It's really hard to do because I own my land and my neighbor next door to me owns their land, and then the next door owns their land. Everybody owns, the way Bear Camp is set up, we're not a commune. Everybody owns their own land. They got their own pickup trucks, their own equipment, their own sheep, their own fences, their own kids, their own houses. But we choose to do life together. We like go out of our way to intentionally try and be involved in each other's lives. Oftentimes, it gets taken for granted. Until we come to a place like this, it's like, gosh, what we have is so cool. It's awesome. So sometimes it takes some perspective, some standoff to appreciate what you've already got. All my neighbors, whom I love, who I do life with intentionally all the time, all have gates. And when their gate is closed, they're not available. When their gate is open, they're available. If you come down my driveway without texting me first, my assumption is it's an emergency, Mike. I like a little bit of heads up. I hate getting ambushed. I like doing the ambushing. But boundaries are biblical. We're commanded not to move the ancient boundary, right? Do not diminish a brother's inheritance. What's yours is yours, what's mine is mine. Now, mine, yours. What does that mean? The Father has entrusted me to steward this. I'm responsible for this. You're responsible for this. You're responsible for this. Now, how do we take this, my responsibility, your responsibility, your responsibility, and use it all together in a system that makes the Father smile even bigger? Okay? Because it's not mine. I didn't make the dirt. I didn't make the trees. Sidebar, sewed, mystical. You know what trees are made of? Anybody know? You know what wood's made of? There's a thing called lignin. It's the constituent building block of the cells in a tree. People way smarter than me have crunched the numbers, and there is not enough lignin on planet Earth, nor the capacity in the soil to produce the lignin, to produce all the trees that we have. Trees are evidence of the sovereignty of Elohim. They shouldn't be able to exist. Yeah, made them so we could breathe. We go a little bit deeper on trees. As the former tree guy, I don't know how many millions of trees I've cut. But just, there's a tree, cut it down. Next, take that to the mill. In spite of our understanding that they couldn't possibly exist, there they are. That in of itself is a miracle. There's a field of study, quantum mechanics, and the interacting multiverse. Mathematically, it's a thing that people are studying right now. And scientists, mathematicians, posit that the leaves of a tree function in the quantum realm because trees convert solar energy to energy inside of the tree at 100.00% efficiency. And there is not another system that we know of that is capable of that. And so their explanation is these trees must be entangled in the quantum field and they're getting help from other trees and other multiverses in order to make a leaf do what a leaf does. We could play that game, or Elohim made it, looked at it and said, good, that's good. 100%, that's good. Okay? You guys ever hear of E equals MC squared? Familiar with that? You know where that comes from? Einstein. Anybody know what ethno-religion Einstein was? He was a Jew. You know where he came up with, what part of the Bible he came up with E equals MC squared, according to his own diaries? Genesis 1 verse 1. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. You have four-dimensional space-time and the source of all life in the first verse of the Bible. When, which is your time component in the beginning. Who, Elohim, did what? Created. First law of thermodynamics, energy cannot be destroyed, right? It can only change. Heavens and earth, height, width, depth. That's our X, Y, and Z axis. Those are other three of the 4 dimensions. 4-dimensional space-time, which then got used to create atom bombs and nuclear reactors and basically modern society. Hidden in the first verse of the first chapter in the Bible. Coincidence. Now, he's a Jew. The Jews don't believe in Messiah. So I want to this occurred to me the other day, real quick. E equals mc squared. This is energy. Is the equivalent of mass times light squared.
You can't see that.
Yah becomes flesh twice.
Repeat.
Yah becomes flesh twice. Energy becomes mass, light, twice. But a Jew could never see that because they reject Messiah. And it's right there. It's the cornerstone of what all this is built on. Hidden. Sewed on sewed on sewed. I know what the Bible says. Sure you do. I've never said I don't know more in my life since Pastor Joe rubbed oil on my forehead. I don't know. And what I thought I know, I barely know. My answer now is, let's see if we can find out together, because I'm still figuring this thing out too. Boundaries are biblical. Hierarchy is biblical. Okay? Leadership, subordinate leadership, that is biblical. Moses and Jethro, Yitro. You guys remember that story? Yeah. Captains of tens, captains of 50s, captains of hundreds, captains of thousands. Because one guy can't run 603,550 men. Doesn't work that way. Span of control. 3 to 5 dudes that report to you, and then on down. So hierarchies are biblical. Gets into what is a pastor. Jeremiah 3:15. And I shall raise up over you, pastors, shepherds, ra'ah. Raise up over you. So that's hierarchy. After my own heart, says Yah. So they have to be after Yah's heart. That will feed you with knowledge and understanding. A bunch of you in this room are pastors. You just don't conduct yourself like it. I barely conduct myself like a pastor. Barely. Like 1% there. I get these little ladies on YouTube that leave mean comments. You talk like that and call yourself a pastor? Yeah, I'm working on it. You're all the pastors of your home. Every one of you. I shall raise up over you. That's headship. Okay? Not for dominion, for dominance. Do what I said, woman. That's Yah's daughter. Your father-in-law is the creator of the universe. Okay? She belonged to Elohim before she belonged to you. Treat carefully. That's your weaker vessel. Doesn't mean she's not strong. She's just strong differently than you. Going back to sensors. Your wife tends to be the opposite of you, right? I get up early, my wife sleeps late. I can't see colors, my wife is an artist, okay? On and on and on. She has a different array of sensors than I do. She's my rib. I trust her. I should trust her. Yah gave me his daughter, so I have an extra array of sensors and a second opinion on life. In the mouths of 2 or 3, let a thing be established, right? She sees things that I don't see. What a blessing. If I don't talk to her, I will never know the things that she sees that I don't. She can't cover my 6 if there's no commo. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So you are the pastor of your home. Conduct yourself as such. There's also elders in this room, and I don't mean beard color. There's a prescription in Timothy, 1 Timothy 3. An elder should be this, an elder should be that, an elder should be that. As this thing continues to grow, be it Yah's will, we will need more subordinate leadership. I had nothing to do with this weekend. Literally nothing. Kyle said, "Are you going to be there?" I was like, "Yep." He's like, "Are you going to talk?" "Yep." And then I got an email like everybody else with an address in it. Thank you. That is the extent of my involvement here. Everything else that you see was efforts of everybody else that's here. Some of those guys are getting a little long in the tooth in love. And they need Joshua's. So when you talk to Dad and ask him why he made you, if the answer is to do more of this, you should reach out to them, because they need subordinate leadership now too to continue to perpetuate what we're doing here. And if you don't do it here, you should. A lot of you qualify as elders where you are from. I hear it all the time and it pisses me off. I cannot find a church near me that I like. I don't care, because there was no church near me that I liked. So I drove to PJ's house 2 hours one way every weekend to be around people that I liked, that I respected, that I do respect, that it's an honor to serve, so that we could read the word together and then try and conduct ourselves per the word. And because we have context and dwell time, hold each other accountable in it. There's no Hebrew Roots mega church 3 minutes from my house. And if there was, I probably wouldn't go, because I don't like mega churches. Because in a mega church, you lose this. I can't look you in the eye in a mega church. Don't like it. I like this intimacy. I was telling some of you all the other day, if this thing continues to grow and there's 400 men that want to come to men's retreat, we're not doing one men's retreat with 400 men. We're doing 5 men's retreats with 80 men each, because this is that important. You guys, you have organically broken yourself into small groups every time somebody gets done speaking, and it's beautiful, because that's how it's supposed to be. We get to break bread together. That's how it's supposed to be. If this feels good to you right now, go home and replicate it, okay? It was an honor to be at Shofar Mountain the hundreds of, maybe thousands of times that I've been there. We then bought a Grindstone National Training Center, praise Yah. And we lease some space from it weekly so that we can meet now at Bear Camp with our growing assembly there, while still taking time to assemble the entire tribe intentionally so that we can breathe each other's air and eat each other's food and ask about the kids and how your tomatoes doing and do you need sheep? Because I have way too many sheep. That requires hierarchy. When I started doing this, I was alone. Because he who can be trusted with little can be trusted with much, right? I could barely be trusted with myself. There's still days now I really shouldn't be trusted with myself. Which is why it's good to have brothers and pastors and go, hey man, love you, what the f are you doing? I don't know. Well, at least stop doing that. Okay, tracking. Push-ups. Do push-ups. I hate the word struggling, but I was hyper fixated for a while. I was having a hard time not letting my eyes look at pornography early on. And I went to PJ and I was like, please fix me, please help me. And he looks at me and he goes, do push-ups. I was like, okay. I did so many friggin' push-ups for, I don't know, millions of push-ups for a while. It's like whenever you have that urge, do push-ups. Replacement theology. I still on occasion have to bang out a set of push-ups. Okay? Reproof and instruction. We need that. We need to be able to say to each other, hey, I got this thing going on and it's not good. Can you help me? And it doesn't just happen. It requires intent. Okay? So that's the piece on hierarchy is biblical. You need leaders, you need subordinate leaders, you need elders. And it has to be in a group this size or smaller. So I can look at Kyle and know he's not doing too good right now. I should go talk to him. Or he can look at me and go, I can feel something in you. What is it? Let go of it. Thank you. You lose accountability the larger the group gets. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's really friggin' hard. I'm convinced the reason it's so hard is most of us are terrible at loving ourselves. You guys want to do a thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Every one of you should have paper on your table. Some of y'all have seen this before because we did this at my assembly a couple weeks ago. We're going to do a little exercise. I want you to take your piece of paper and fold it in half like that. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Fold it in half, put it landscape, fold it in half. For those that have seen this before, help your brother to the left or the right of you through this. Okay? Okay? Who was that? All right, you should have your paper folded in half, landscape. Everybody there? Yes. Good. Don't be afraid to be loud. I'm deaf in one ear, okay? What? Not red. Not red. That's red? I thought it was orange.
You were way off. Blue, that's better.
All right, your paper should be folded down the middle. Gosh, these sucks.
That's worse. Hold on. Maybe this time.
Fold your paper down the middle like this. I see him running. I feel the ground shaking. At the top, right here, make a line, just a header line. Do the same thing on the other side. So you should have left and right columns. Move with a sense of purpose. Keep the chatter to a minimum. You got your headers? Okay. Left column in the header. Right. I am. This is us in the flesh. I am. Lust. Write it down. Lust. L-U-S-T, below the header. Header should say I am. Below the header, lust. Right side of the page. What is the opposite of lust?
Control.
How about love? Left side. I am weak. What's the opposite of weak?
Strong.
Strong. Left side of the page. What else are we? envious, proud. Start filling these in. For you, broken, proud, envious, fearful, unfulfilled. Put it down. This is important. Lazy. Doubtful. That's a good one. Deceitful. Selfish. Alone. Are we having confession time right now? Yes, we are. And it's healing. Afraid. Insecure.
Out of shape.
Out of shape. Thank you. Broken. Unfaithful. Scared? Scared. Ashamed. Cowardly. Proud. Now, this is an exercise, okay? I'm illustrating to you a process that I was taught and I use to love me better so I can love my neighbor as myself, okay? This side is me. This is me in the flesh. This is me without Messiah. This is me, a broken, messed up piece of trash. Okay? The opposite of lust is love. The opposite of broken is whole. The opposite of afraid is brave. The opposite of unfaithful is faithful. The opposite of scared, how about certain? Ashamed. Truthful. Introspective. I like it. Proud. Humble. Okay. I want you to take another couple of moments and fill out the right column with an opposite characteristic of whatever you listed that you are in the flesh. Tracking?
Tracking.
When you got it done, just look up. What do they call this? Bleeding on paper, Jode?
Yep.
All right. The header, actually, down the fold on your paper, down the center of the paper, this right here, you write Yeshua. And on this side, you write, I am. And then above that, you write, the great I am. The great I am. This is the battle of the flesh versus the spirit. Shaul of Tarsus, the Apostle Paul, goes on and on about this in the epistles. The basic man, the basic nature. When I am in my flesh, I am all of this. I am lustful and broken and afraid and unfaithful and scared and ashamed and proud consistently. And this produces really bad fruit. I have seen what this produces, and it's nothing to brag about. But I have an intercessor. His name's Yeshua. Because of him, I have access to the great I am. You guys tracking?
Tracking.
And with Yeshua, in the Spirit, I am love. I am whole. I am brave. I am faithful. I'm certain. I'm truthful. And I'm humble. All of these are true. It's just which set of attributes do I want to operate from? Which goes back to what I was saying earlier with Heath. Truth in the flesh wounds. Truth in the spirit heals. Does this make sense?
Yes.
You can audit yourself based upon how you are feeling. I know, we're men. We don't use those things. Some of us use them a lot, okay? How am I feeling right now? Am I operating in the flesh or am I operating in the spirit? Where am I supposed to be operating from? Spirit. If I end up back over here in this column, how do I get back over here again? Yeshua. Map recon, it's a thing. Does this make sense?
Yes.
When I am feeling this way, I do not love myself, which means I can't love Jason if I don't love me. I can't love Lee if I don't know me. I can't love Pastor if I don't love me. And me, not very lovable. I'll bring it back around. There's not a thing in me that you guys see that is good that is me. It's the great I am, that I am blessed to have his spirit residing inside of me. And this is the side of the column we want to operate from. Tracking?
Tracking.
You should do this at home. Audit yourself. And if you get off, yeah. And if you get off track, audit yourself in the moment. I'm not good. Okay, Yeshua. I'm good. Okay? I'm going to end with this. I've got more notes here, but they're not for today, and that's okay. We've touched a bunch of the things that I wanted to. These are what the world calls I am statements. Just because a heathen touched a bit of truth somewhere doesn't mean it belongs to him. It belongs to Elohim. Okay? Broken clock's right twice a day. Same thing. Blind squirrel finds a nut. You are that. But you're also that. And you get to choose in your soul what you're gonna be. how you're going to operate, how will you conduct yourself. Let's go a step further, a little more sewed. The Torah says don't murder, right? Right? Messiah says don't want to murder, asshole. Which is harder? The Torah says don't commit adultery. Messiah says if you look at that woman with lust in your eyes, you've committed adultery. Congratulations, we're all adulterers. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of Elohim. Which is harder? Don't bang Tamar, or don't even look at Tamar like that. Torah says don't steal. Messiah says you shouldn't want to steal. And also, you should take care of people who need to steal to feed themselves. Is the Torah bad? No, not at all. But you don't want to get into a box checker mentality. I already had that in Christendom. Show up on Sunday, service starts at 10:30, be there by 10:15, we'll get some good seats, get a cup of coffee, worship, okay, that was fun. Pastor's going to say some stuff. I'll look at my phone while he's doing that. Hey, amen. Okay, go pick the kids up, hop back in the car. What do you guys want for lunch? Nothing. I went through the motions, okay? The Torah is a divine document. It is a covenant between the Father and his people that gives us a pattern of behavior to hold us accountable, to conduct ourselves as men of Elohim. And that's amazing that we would be given a playbook. But it can also be weaponized against you. Messiah says you shouldn't want to sin. The Torah says this is what sin is. The Messiah says it's not enough to know what it is. You shouldn't want to do it because of the renewing of your mind and the renewing of your heart and your belief, which is how you walk your life out. Right? We are to emulate Messiah. 1 Peter 2:21, for this you were called that Messiah, having suffered for your sins, that you would walk in his steps, which is a verb. Walk is a verb. It means do shit. Not talk about it, think about it, pray about it, journal about it, post about it online. Go do it. And when you do, we have to do it in the Spirit or it won't work. Because when we do it in our flesh, our egos will get in the way. Our brokenness will get in the way. Our shortcomings, our insecurities will get in the way, and it won't work. So we want to operate from this side of the page as much as we can. We'll end with this. Forgiveness. Matthew chapter 6. Matthew 6:14. 6:14. For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father shall also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither shall your Father forgive your trespasses. Who is speaking here? Yeshua. This is literally the gospel truth from the mouthpiece of Elohim, Yah made flesh. We men struggle with forgiveness because we know this about us. This is very hard to forgive. And I also know this about all my brothers. Which makes it very hard to forgive them when I'm seeing them in the flesh. I might be a piece of shit, but so are you. That's not a very spirit-filled conversation. That's not going to produce much fruit, right? Our sins are forgiven us by the blood of Messiah, right? Yeah. Right? Yeah. This doesn't matter unless we continue to return to it like a dog to its vomit. This is forgiven. Shall we sin all the more so that grace may abound? No, God forbid we continue to conduct ourselves this way, because we have been made new by Yeshua, so that we can live unto life this. I'm an ENTJ. I'm the extroverted version of pastor. He's the introverted version of me. The ENT are like this big on the billboard, and the J is 43 feet high. Capital. It's got lights on it. It flashes. That's really counterproductive for relationships with people. True or untrue? True. Yah didn't make me to judge people. He made me to judge and judge righteously according to the law, to judge situations, to judge doctrine, to judge the truth of this word, but not to judge people. Because if I start judging Adam Prime, what leg do I have to stand on? Not a one. Because then we get into the I'm a piece of shit, but so are you argument that helps nobody and exacerbates pre-existing emotional, mental, spiritual wounds that I can't even see. And now you hate me even more because I made you feel feelings you didn't want to feel. I reminded you of all the times you existed on this side of the page. And will probably drive you back to this side of the page because you'll have a stress-induced response that will result in lust or brokenness or fear or whatever. This is the mechanism of forgiveness. I don't want Prime over here. And he shouldn't want me over here either, right? Because I'm my brother's keeper, and he is his brother's keeper. Doesn't mean don't call me on my bullshit. Well, what is that? Hey, T, you're over here on the left side of the page again. You're right. My bad. How do we fix that? Repentance. Come to Yeshua. Turn from your crap and go back over here into the Spirit. Forgiven. That is the map sheet for the mechanism of forgiveness. But if I hold animosity in my heart against Prime, which I have none, brother. I'm just picking on you because you're here. I learned it from PJ. It's his fault. The animosity that I hold against you will force me back into this column, which is death. And my trespasses will not be forgiven me. And I'm contributing to your death too. Does that make sense? Yeah. Forgiveness is really hard. And it's really hard because we are men with egos. It's really hard to say I made a mistake. It shouldn't be, but it's oftentimes really hard. And it's really, really hard to forgive people who made a mistake against you. And that goes back around to see people as the way Messiah sees them. And humble yourself. Be humble. I make mistakes all the time. I will very likely continue to make them. If I was put to death for every mistake I've ever made, I would not be here. Nor would any of y'all. So we've already been extended grace and mercy. And it's that grace and mercy that's been extended to us that we should extend to others. Is there a line there? Yeah. There's a difference between killing and murder, for example. Guy runs in here with an AK and starts shooting, we're shooting back. Right? Like the talk that Pastor gave. It's great talk. And we should be prepared for that. But I'm not going to go looking for dudes with AKs to start some shit with. That's premeditated murder. There's a line in there. The measure with which you give is the measure that shall be given unto you. You heard that?
Yes.
As your capacity increases for forgiveness of self, it increases for forgiveness of everybody else too. The more you do that, the more you can operate off of this side of the column. So in closing, this is titled How to Fish. We're going to talk about fish one time. But the reason I believe the Father gave me this talk is to facilitate leadership within this group and within your homes and your companies and your churches. When you leave here and starburst back out into the world, you will have tools in your toolkit to be a better follower of Messiah. You do not have to do what I do. You don't have to study the way I study, or whiteboard the way I whiteboard, or draw things on paper and take copious notes the way that I do. But you do need to figure out what works for you, because the Father has an expectation for you. If he didn't, you wouldn't exist. And I need you to understand that. Everything is by his design, and he doesn't make mistakes. Okay? So that means he looked on the world. It was like, they're doing pretty good down there, but I'll tell you what, we need John. Send him in. Put him in a womb. Jeremiah was told, I knew you before you were formed in the womb. That means that Jeremiah was known before he had flesh and bone. Implication is, so were you. Which means you is not flesh. You is spirit, which is where you're supposed to be operating anyway. And if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing on behalf of Dad, you need to ask him, because he made you for a reason. And every day that you're not operating in that reason, you are thumbing your nose at the creator of the universe. And every day he doesn't end your life prematurely is complete and utter mercy and grace. Because you are now, brethren, being disobedient, because now you know if you don't operate in it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You're welcome. So, I appreciate every one of you. The whole point of this was A, to illustrate there's a lifetime of learning in here. And what you put into it, you'll get back out of it. And I'm not special. I want every one of you in your lifetime to do such awesome and meaningful and powerful works for the Creator that nobody ever knows my name again. Go outshine me like the sun. Please. Do so many incredible, wonderful things on behalf of Elohim that there's not enough pages on planet Earth to write down all the awesome stories that you have. Tracking?
Tracking.
The end. Good.